morning, students. Welcome to Literature Learning. Today we will continue with the line-by-line explanation of the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade by Sir Alfred Lord Tennyson. And we begin with the fourth stanza onwards. So we have the fourth stanza onwards on page number 130. So let's begin. Let's read. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army, while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke, Cossack and Russian, reel from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Now here we see a word, saber. Now what's a saber? A saber is a heavy cavalry sword with a curved blade and a single cutting edge. So flashed all their sabers bare, flashed as they turned in air. So they raised their sabers and swords in the air, and their swords flashed in the light. So it flashed in the sunlight when they were attacking their enemy soldiers. They swung their swords and charged at their enemies. The term flashed here, the term flashed as it is given here, the term flashed all their sabers bare, flashed as they turned in the air. So the soldiers were quick in their movement, and only a flash or a quick movement could be seen, and not the whole person riding upon his horse. So sabering the gunners there, charging an army. So what did they do? They started stabbing the enemy soldiers, as many as they could. They charged at an entire army, and the whole world wondered. So the whole world watched in amazement and consternation. They watched with anxiety at the unexpected happening. So the poet says these words to highlight the fact that the men followed their orders as they were soldiers doing their duty without questioning. Most of them knew that the order was wrong, that it was a mistake. Still, they did not desert their positions. The world wondered at their dedication and their sincerity. Then the next line reads, plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke, Cossack and Russians. Now the cavalrymen drove fearlessly and drove into the smoke. So they drove into the smoke coming from the guns. So they broke through the enemy line or barrier and stabbing the enemy soldiers, as many as they could. The Russian troops were dazed, and the Russians and their allies, Cossacks, so they were the allies of the Russians, and the Cossacks were supposed to be very brave, and they are known as very fierce soldiers, and they were dazed. So the next line reads, reel from the saber strokes, shattered and sundered. They were cut into pieces, shattered and sundered they were cut into pieces, and they were sliced by their swords. The enemy were shattered and sundered, which means they were broken or sliced into pieces. So here we get a very vivid picture of what was happening. The Russians too suffered casualties. This tells us of the resolve of the Light Brigade in their suicidal charge as they were facing attack, firing and shelling by the soldiers on the Russian army, heavily armed with guns, cannons and ammunitions, as against the Light Brigade's sabers and swords. The next line says, then they rode back, but not the 600. So they rode back after slicing, cutting, and then killing the enemy soldiers. What they did, when they saw that many of them were already dead, they started to retreat. So they started to go back. So the Light Brigade returned back. They retreated, but not all the 600 who had rode out. Not all the soldiers of the Right Brigade returned back. Most of the soldiers perished in the charge. This shows the dedication and courage of the soldiers. They were not bothered about their own lives, but followed the orders. The Light Brigade had lost many soldiers and horses, of course. Only a few survived, and therefore not all the 600 who rode out returned. So we move on to the next stanza. Stanza 5. Let's read. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell, all that was left of them, left of 600. So, cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered. Now, the speaker tells us that there were cannons on right, left, and behind them. That now that they were retreating or returning, the cannons were not just left there or kept there. They volleyed and thundered. So it says they volleyed and thundered, stormed it with shot and shell. So these cannons continuously were bombing, attacking the soldiers and viciously attacking them. So the soldiers fell down. So the cannons behind them firing loud blasts. The soldiers were showered with gunshots and artillery shells. And while horse and hero fell, that they that had fought so well. So soldiers on horses fell dead. Many of these heroes and their horses were killed, even though they had fought so well. They came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. So they who fought so well, they were returning from the brink of death, the jaws of death. And therefore the Light Brigade lost many soldiers and horses, and therefore not all the 600 could return back to their journey. Only a few survived. All that was left of them, left of 600. Now, you may have noticed that the poet leaves the number of soldiers who died to the reader's imagination to emphasize their bravery. So, in the next stanza, we move on to the next stanza. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made. Honor the Light Brigade. Noble 600. So we see here that the speaker is praising the bravery of the soldiers. So he says, when can their glory fade? Will their glory will the glory ever fade? Will they be forgotten ever? They will never be forgotten. So because they made a wild charge, they only followed orders. They never questioned their orders, and they followed their orders. They were very sincere, dedicated to their work, and they did. The whole world admired them. The whole world wondered, and they admired them. So we must respect. It says, honor the charge they made. Honor the Light Brigade. We must respect the charge that they made. We must honor, we must respect the Light Brigade, because they were the noble 600. They were the dedicated soldiers, and we may respect the noble 600 men of the Light Brigade. Here we come to the end of the explanation, and I hope you have understood the poem very well. Thank you.